If you find yourself working with large data sets often, then you might consider using an Excel table. Now, it might seem like quite a basic tool, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Excel effectively turns your data into an interactive database, allowing you to sort, filter, and summarize data so you can make actionable decisions. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make the most of the table's function using some Google Analytics data. Now, an Excel table sits on the Home tab on the Styles grouping, and all you have to do is click Format as Table. Now, some might think that the Format as Table button is just to make your data look pretty, but it's not. It comes with a lot of added functionality and so many advantages, which I'd like to show you here. Now, before we click on the button, though, it's important to confirm that your data is good data first. Now, what does good data mean exactly? Well, the first thing is that there should only be one row of headings. Your headings cannot be over 2 rows, only one. And then there shouldn't be any breaks in your data either. Not in the columns, there shouldn't be a blank column in between, and there should also not be any blank rows. One way to confirm where my data ends is to hit Control and the down arrow, and the cursor will stop at the first break. Now, looking at the data, my first break is at the end of my data, so I know that there are no blank rows. Now, I've got my data for August up above, and down below I've got September's data, but I'll get to the September data later on. My August range looks good, and there are no breaks. But lastly, I want to confirm that I've got consistent data types across every column. And if you look at all the records, the numbers, the percentages, the text, the dates, I want to see consistent types of data up and down those columns. And at a glance, it looks like I do. So I'm confident that my data is good. And if the data is good, well, how do we make this a table? Well, you can click anywhere within the data range, and you go up to the Home tab, the Styles grouping, Format as Table, or the shortcut is Control-T on Windows and on Mac. You should double check if your range is good, but if you don't have any blank rows, then your range should be fine. And this table has headers, so I'm going to check off my table has headers, hit OK, and this is what a default table looks like in Excel. So you'll know that this was successful if you click inside the table and out, and the Table Design Contextual tab up top appears and disappears. Also, if you go back to the data and then you hit Control and down arrow, you'll see there's a little blue shape in the bottom right-hand corner. This is called a sizing handle, and that indicates the edge of your data that's included in the table. If you don't like the default format on the Contextual tab, you can go up and change it back to this format. This just changes the appearance of the cells. The range is still formatted as a table. Before we look at what advantages the table holds, let's look at good practice first. Let's rename the table. On the Table Design tab, I have Google Analytics data, so we're going to type that in GA_data, no spaces. Now, here's the first advantage. Look at my headings. Often when you scroll down to the bottom of your data, the headings disappear so that it's no longer visible. But look at the table headings now. As I scroll one more row down, the table headings jumps onto the column headings, and it's available the whole way down until you click outside the table. Headings are gone, now they're back. Now if I go to the top of the data again, it has auto filter buttons, which you can also use to sort. The big advantage is that Excel sees this as one unit of data. And there's no risk of you sorting only the one column and corrupting your data that way. Another nice advantage, inside the table, on the Table Design tab, you have a total row that you can tick. So let's click Control down again to get to the bottom of the data. And if I want to add up total revenue, for example, then I'll go up and I'll click on Total Row to get a total. But look at what happens. It actually adds up the dates. And actually, I don't want that. So let's just change that to nothing. If we go over to the revenue column, we can get exactly what we want. Let's go right down to Sum. It will add the total revenue. Now we can do it for the other columns too if we like. We can get total transactions. We can get the average conversion rate. You can pick them as you go along. Now the next benefit is a little weird, so stick with me. If you're used to normal Excel formulas, it gets a little intimidating, but let's try this out. Let's say I want to add a formula to my table. In my data, I've got a column for total users and one for new users. But I know if I subtract the new users from total users, I'll get the number of existing users. So let's say I want to add a column for that. Right? So let's insert a column, and then we'll add a header, and it immediately recognizes existing users as a header. So that's nice. But now look at this. If I click in the middle of the column, here we are at E16. I add a formula. I'm going to add it with normal Excel formulas for now. And to do that, you got to go up to the formula bar. So we type equals. And we know we want C16 minus D16, right? So we've got that in the formula. But watch what happens when I click enter. When I do, the formula gets copied to all the cells above and below in the range. Now that's pretty cool. But let's use E16 as an example again. If I type in the cell equals sign and I click on the reference, look at what happens. Instead of saying C16 minus D16, now it says at users minus at new users. Now what is that? Now this is what's known as structured referencing. The benefit of that is that you don't have to worry about adding dollar signs to lock cells when you copy formulas, because that at symbol refers to the current row in the data. So if you've got at users minus at new users, Excel will look for those two columns by name and reference the cells in the current row to complete the formula. If I press enter, my new formula, once again, it copies all the way up and all the way down the column. All right. Now, tables have what you call a dynamic range that can extend your table range, and it copies the formulas that you've added to the new range. Let's go back down to the bottom of this sheet to demonstrate this. For now, we need to untick the total row option, so let's do that. And now I'm going to select my September data. That's all this data down at the bottom. I'm going to go to the bottom. To do that, it's Control down, and then I'm going to go over to the right, Shift Control right, and then select all my data going up, Shift Control up. And I'm going to deselect that one row because I don't want the headers, as the headers are just the same for both sets of data. Now I'm going to grab my data, I'm going to drag it and let it go just below my other table. The warning says there's already data here, and do you want to replace it? It's because the headers remained. I only grabbed the data below the headers, and it wants to know if I'm okay with getting rid of the headers. I'm totally happy with that. And there it is, my new formula copied all the way down. My September data has been added. And how do I know? Because the formatting is consistent. And I could check my sizing handle, the bottom right-hand corner. It now includes the September data. And if I want to get my totals back, on the Table Design tab, go to Style Options, check off Total Rows, and all the formulas that I had set up before are now back. And that is how you use tables. Tables give your data an organized home to live in, allowing you to easily sort, filter, and add up totals. And the best part is that you can use the same formatting for repeated tasks such as monthly marketing reports or lead prospecting. Ready to learn more about Microsoft Excel? Then check out the full course on GoSkills.com. Click the link in the description.